Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Hello to millions of viewers out there, and I can't believe it. I swear to God, it just seems like we're on this every other day. Week just
Well,
flies by.
this is the holiday weekend where everybody heads for the hills.
Yep.
Head up tomorrow. Everybody's going to be going up I-17 and the Beeline Highway towards Payson, and get out of the heat. It's supposed to be 100 and something. So we're going to see. So I want to recap a little bit about obviously inventory and rates and stuff. But I've been saying I just don't see inventory climbing this summer, and getting a lot of pushback on that, and that's okay. I mean, I want people to give me their comments and tell me what they think. I want to talk a little bit about this student loan debt and the bond market results this week that I want you to touch on. But I think first and foremost, when we look at predictions here for active listings, I said we would go down a little bit, and we've kind of flattened out. But next week, Monday, when this updates, we will be right about here, that little red dot. And then it's going to be down here after Memorial Day. So I expect us to go here and kind of hang out at 25K, Pat, maybe go down a little bit farther. One of the reasons is, so when I look at my 7-day moving average, you can see that it's a holiday time. So number of new listings has popped off. It's slowed down. And number of contracts has gone up slightly, surprisingly, but it hit a real dip here at 2,800. Now it's like 29.95. So it's not that big a deal, but we're not seeing the big spike in new listings. And what I'm finding also is that the canceled listings are starting to continue to increase ever so slightly every week. So, when I look at the market, it tells me that, and I'm going to talk about this when you put up that chart that we looked at, the chart of despair and hope and stuff. Yeah. I have a comment about listings when you get that chart up here. So we have noticed Tucson inventory shrinking just as well. Overpriced homes are just sitting anyway. That's the story of the day. I had a broker once tell me when you list your home, the price you're going to get is the price you're going to get. It all depends on how long you want to wait to get there.
Well, that's pretty deep.
Well, the market has a price. You either recognize what that market price is and go to it, or sit there and just watch days on market accumulate. You can't, that's it. And we're seeing price changes. Actually, believe it or not, went down from up here. We had 36.88. Now we have 32.69. So I think what's happened, rather than change the price, we saw more canceleds and expireds. Here's this chart got updated today instead of usually on Friday. So I get to share it today, which tells you that the Cromford people are taking off early tomorrow. Fountain Hills is now the number one spot for a seller's market, with Chandler in the back dropping another 11% on the Cromford index. So it's not favorable for sellers. And it goes on and on to say that supply is no longer trending higher, but instead is looking stable. What did I just show you? However, the already weak demand is now starting to get worse. Jane here. Hi, Jane. Welcome. A house down from me was listed for sale yesterday. Same floor plan. I think the asking price is too high. I don't know where they got the comps to price it where they did. You've probably heard me say on here, comps don't mean what they used to mean. That was yesterday. But if you're going to compete right now, you're competing with new builds, especially, Jane, down where you are. And how do you compete with new builds now? You offer concessions and rate buy downs. So, Pat, if rates today are 7 and I want to get to low 6s and the listing is 500,000, what do you approximately, what would that cost the seller to buy it down that far?
What to buy it down to what?
Low 6s.
You're looking at right now at Provident. I'm looking at Provident A paper. You're looking 6 would be about a $19,000 buy down.
Okay, so let's say you want 40,000. You think you'd get down below 6?
Oh yeah, I
Maybe
mean, well, I
maybe
mean,
low 5s?
well, yeah, 35,000 buy down would be 5.25.
Okay, so that's how you compete with leave your price there, buy down the rate permanently. You're now competing with builders. That's one option to consider. But most people are putting their
Well, the thing with it is,
house on lowering the price, and they're not getting any bites.
well, just on a side note though, I mean, you're limited if you're doing a conventional. There are certain buy downs. I mean, if you're doing only 5%, you can only do 5% down. It only allows you for 3% concessions. If you do
Okay,
10% on conventional, you can go 6% concessions. So
so you're a little limited there.
you're limited on your buy down. Just for people out there, you're limited on your buy down and how much you could use based on how much you're. It's all based on how much you're putting down on the house payment, on the down payment. So,
Well,
and
that's it.
FHA's got higher. They're you can go higher on FHA. So there's just
That's
different.
a direct result of me trying to think, Pat.
I mean, it's so you just got to be careful.
You guys ate well. Look, you are back in your early 50s. You're aged.
Age well, yeah, hopefully age well. Maybe is that a sign that we're gaining weight? I mean, I know I've gained some pounds.
All the comps are based on home sales during COVID chaos and the max exodus that happened from lockdown left coast states. It's going to take a while for prices to stabilize. The comps, we tend to go back 3 months. And the challenge now is you may only find 2 homes in that area that have sold in 3 months. And so you go back 3 months, and that contract was written 40 days before that, and the market's gone down 3-4%. You have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
So you have to have very frank conversation with the seller and go, okay, they got it, their price. It's exactly like your house, but you're not going to get that today. You're going to get less, and that's a hard conversation. People, they looking on Zillow and get married to the price. And Ray here says our 5-year-old home in Cave Creek just went under contract, 78 days on the market, 5.7% discount to original list price, 2 10K price cuts, completely rent debated. I can't talk today.
Yeah, I can't talk today.
Mercifully, no other concessions. Well, you did well considering where.
I did really well.
Clayton's asking, when was the last time inventory was 28,000 in Phoenix like it is now? Let me pull up the handy dandy little chart here, and let's scroll through that. Let's go to 2019, considerably lower. I'm going to think it's back here in the 9s or 10s. There's 2010, we were at 33,000. 2011, a little lower. So I'd say between 2011 and 2012 was when we were at about 28,000. Here's 2011 showing 31. They got down to 28,000 here in August of 2011. So, but even then, that was, considered pretty much normal. Clayton, and we've had, some increase there now.
And even then, actually, I remember back in 2010, 2011, talking to people, and they're saying, you try to talk. I remember having several conversations with people going back. I mean, it's hard to believe that was 15 years ago, but where does time go? But back then, 28,000, 29,000, it was really hard to get people pushed over the line. They're like, I'm not going to touch real estate right now. No, I'm not going to
do it. I'm not going to do it. People got burned. I can't do it. I let the house foreclose. I think real estate's going to continue to come down. Yep. I'm not touching it. So wait for a crash. If you wait for a crash now, let's just mentally walk through this for a moment. And let's say next year that we go down 30%. Okay. Are you going to buy next year? No. You're going to go, I'm afraid I'm not going to touch it. The smart money might. I think it's still going down. I'm going to leave it alone. So that might be another 2-3 year journey for you, just like it was after 2008. it was 3-4 years before people started dipping their toes back in.
Well, they started dipping probably around 2011, 2012, because 2010 was the bottom. And 2011, 12, they started dipping back in. But it wasn't until about 13, 14 when people started getting more comfortable with buying.
Here's some comments from the Cromford Report that says there's a little bit of good news for sellers and accounts of new listings coming to market over the last few weeks. In other words, fewer listings coming on. We were getting about 10,000 new listings, a number that they regard as excessive. And now that's creeped down to about, let's see, the next one here, down to about 9,283 per 28 days. Still high, but the trend is clearly downward. And I'm seeing that on my 7-day moving average. The current downward trend means the Cromford Supply Index is losing some of its upward momentum. So the gap between demand and supply is widening more slowly. At least it should be if demand could just regain a bit more backbone. And it has not been a good couple of days for rates, which is, like it or not, rates are driving the market. And
pretty much, yeah. I mean, yesterday we got some pushback on this budget stuff. I mean, we had this is 2 days. This is the last 2 days. Actually, let's go back to this last month. These are prices, so rates and prices move inversely. So as these go down, rates are going up. So we've been in this this downtrend since May 1st, and this little bar right here is yesterday, and we're starting to see. I look at the 1 day too when I'm trying to lock something or take a look at it. We bottomed here. I mean, in the morning, obviously starting in the morning, we firmed up down here. This is today, so you can see, we had this little spat yesterday. It firmed up, and then we've got like I said, this is the 5-day. It's just been the last 5 days. It's been just pretty much we've had some little fits and starts, but going back really this last year, this has been the up and down market that we've had. We've had these 30-day fits and starts, and obviously it has all budget related. Before, a couple months ago, we were tariff. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I just thought about an hour ago that this tariff talk has been dominating the headlines the last couple months. You don't quite hear that as much anymore, do you? The last week or so?
Not the tariff talk. The talk now is just the debt, and and there's a lot of arguments both sides on the debt. In other words, the CBO projections, this is going to add a few trillion to our debt, but the argument on the other side is that the CBO is kind of using an outdated growth model. In other words, they're factoring in that our GDP will be growing at 1.8% when the average since the 1950s is 3.2%.
Well, they said this budget was, this budget would actually probably get GDP around 3%.
Well, I've read that it could go as high as 4 and 5. And if you just go at the average of 3%, then there is no increase in the deficit. So, but all we can do is watch and wait. So in the meantime, the news, the bond traders, and everybody are just looking at the CBO score, what it means. They're not seeing a lot of debt being cut, and they're saying, well, this looks like it's going to be a problem, and that's what you're seeing in the market. And so it's emotions both ways, but it's still math, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. We got Russ saying he's late. What's cooking? We're almost done, Russ.
We're almost done, Russ. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for. we got one or two more things to cover, and then we're out of here. So
yeah.
Good to have you. So
we'll penalize you we'll send you a late fee later on.
Yeah, we'll do that. We've got to figure out how to do it. There's a button inside here somewhere to do that. So student loan debt. I found an article on that, and it's there's something about student loan. There's a different kind of repayment program that's in this big, beautiful bill that passed Congress last night. And I don't know the details behind it, but I'm reading some of the math here, and it's saying that there's a thing called the SAVE bill, officially depreciated. Servicers kept borrowers in administrative forbearance until they can implement the new repayment assistance plan. And I don't know the details behind that, but there's 2.5 million borrowers that have considerably higher incomes on average, 101,000 a year, versus the FHA borrowers who do not, 64K a year. So they're better positioned to deal with the payment shock. So if the 2.5 million borrowers that make over 100,000, their student loan payments come in, maybe they can handle a little bit better, but the FHA borrowers, not so much. And it's saying, to put the amounts in perspective, the average principal and interest payments on an FHA loan for those borrowers is $1,360. Okay. Well, the average student loan payment is about, they have a loan balance. It says here, so the borrowers had a $50,000 loan balance, but the loan was in forbearance as they were in 2021. Only 250 would count to the DTI instead of 500. So they're basically saying that regardless of all this stuff, there's a huge percentage of buyers, people that have already bought, and potential buyers are going to see about an average of a $450 increase to their monthly payments. In other words, they're going to start paying back these loans. Now, the question is, of the people that are already homeowners and now your student debt payments have to be made, is that going to knock you out of your house? And if you are a homeowner and you're facing that, let me know in the comment section. Are you facing this tsunami of the debt payment finally coming due? And because if you haven't bought and you've got this debt coming due, it's not really going to slow down the market. It's going to delay things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it could be an impact if it knocks you out of your house. Or will it knock you out of your car first? Because your car payments are averaging about $480 a month.
Yeah. I guess wait to watch the movie. I mean, I think I'm hoping and praying that that people are there looking, the potential home buyers that are out there looking, don't have these late payments hit their score. Because if you're a 750, 780 credit score and you get late, it just hammers you in terms of credit score, 100 plus points. So it's everybody's got to take responsibility and accountability to hopefully, keep up with their payments. I mean, I don't know.
Carson's here is wanting us to do a little betting. When do you think rates are going to get to 6.5? At the way they're moving, I mean, it might get 6.5 for 2 days. Go back up. But I mean, it honestly, to me, and Pat, this is your wheelhouse. I think it all depends on the outlook and performance on the bond market, and Japan's participation in purchasing our debt, and moves by Scott Bessent and the central bank with Jerome Powell. So,
well, I think
are we going to stay here till June?
Not to get, I mean, I hate to get, we can't get political on this. We try to do our best, but policy, I have to give Scott Bessent. It just seems to me that we had, Janet Yellen, she didn't do a hell of a lot. I mean, I know if you could put a link, hopefully maybe that, you got that Barry Habib YouTube show, that show they had. Hopefully you can put a link on the down bottom. But, Barry has always been ripping on the feds, talking to how, they just have been behind the 8 ball. Janet Yellen, quite frankly, I mean, I'm not, whether Democrat, Republican, I don't give her a rat's, patoonie, but she was just there. I mean, you hear her answer some of these questions and you're like, are you really there? But you listen to Scott Bessent, it just seems like he's got kind of a hand. I mean, he seems like he's being more proactive. Well, and he wants to get
more practical experience too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Barry Rip, like I said, if you could put that show up for people to look at, that link, that's great. It's a great link. YouTube, Barry Habib. And I can't remember that Mike guy with National Real Estate Post. It's a great show. But Barry goes on the fact that he goes, all these Federal Reserve people do not have any real life practical experience. He goes, matter of fact, he goes, Jerome Powell was attorney before he was a Federal Reserve, involved with the Federal Reserve. So I just think that Scott Bessett's got a lot more hands-on experience to handle the economy. And I hopefully, the bond market, we've got to look at the 10-year bond, the Treasury, what the Feds do. Once again, the last couple of years, we've seen that they've been behind the 8 ball, and whatever they do is just kind of a matter of fact after fact. And so it's really the 10-year Treasury is going to give you a 3 to 6 month outlook, see how it trades, on a weekly and monthly basis. And
yeah, and that's, I don't know. You know what? I just found the link. I'm going to get the link here and share it. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it in the chat. So, so it's right there. We got a comment here from K-Pen that says, I know people who really thought they were never going to have to pay back their student loans and made very large purchases. I know someone who had to get a second job. I don't know how you can borrow that money and think you're not going to pay it back, except the past president was trying to say that you didn't. Supreme Court said, no, you have to. And
well, that's the thing. I mean, he did a disservice to a lot of people said, oh, don't worry. Well, we're going to forgive you. I think a lot of people just got, like, okay, good. I'm going to be on that train. I'm going to jump on that train, which, you kind of don't blame them, but they gave a lot of false hopes.
Robert, if you watched our videos and our shows about a year and a half ago, we hated marry the house, date the rate.
Marry
I didn't like it because it was one of those sayings that just
it was kind of like crushing it. I hate that.
Crushing. We banned the word crushing it.
I hate the word crushing it, but no, I mean, I think like I said, the Treasury. I mean, Barry thinks that we can get down to 3.8. We get down to we were down at 3.7, 3.8 a couple of times here in the last 6 months or last 8 months or so. Rates have been very jittery. This rate environment has not allowed anybody to really feel any. I mean, we've been stuck in this channel from about the mid 6s, 6 5/8, 6 3/4 to 7, in this channel, but we haven't been any type of sustained trend where if they got down into the high 5s, low 6s, and just kind of stayed there, it'd be some nice stability. We see a lot of activity. But
we're not seeing an increase in days on market. We're at 73. We spiked up to 80 in January, that's going to happen because you listed your house in November. So a lot of these trends are seasonal. You can see it here. So days on market, we're not zipping up. So just wanted to toss that out for everybody there for a moment. Have you followed this? I don't think the average consumer really knows what's going on in real estate right now with this Zillow to start blocking some listings in June. For those of you that really like Zillow, which is several million of you, there's a debate going on in National Association of Realtors that they're letting people like Compass, which owns Launch here in Arizona, put listings on and keep them within their own ecosystem. In other words, they don't have to publicly list them on the MLS. And so Zillow's saying, well, if you're going to do that, if you're not going to put it on the MLS and make it public, then we're not going to go grab it and show that it's available on Zillow. Now, okay. I mean, it's your site, Zillow, that's fine. But I don't understand what the advantage be for me to list my house and only have it show up in one brokerage. I don't get that.
You're limiting. You're limiting your eyes on the house, your eyeballs. Yeah. I mean, you're limiting your competition. I mean, maybe you got somebody out there that wants to bid. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We've got how come price in Gilbert is going up right now? I thought price is going down. Depends on the house, depends on the neighborhood. They're not really going up. Maybe the closed prices are going up a little bit. In some areas, I can probably do a little bit of a dig here while I got you on your average sales price by city. So let me pull that up for you here. And let's just go ahead and pull out Gilbert and see what's going on. This is the average sales price. And it went up just by a tick from April to May, from average of 674 to 683. So not too much. So it's not going up much. Robert here says Trend will be going up for rates because of tariffs and a huge tax cut and a monstrous deficit. Well, we spoke about that, and the monstrous deficit is where we're at now with 36 trillion. So the speculation is that it's maybe going to get bigger, but there's debate that, well, maybe it won't, because right now the CBO is only factoring in 1.8% growth in GDP when the average from the 50s was over 3. So if it is over 3, then we won't add to the debt. But I don't know. So I think the speculators and the market traders are going to make that determination. It'll show up in the bond market, and then we'll see moves either way. If indeed it looks like, oh, here comes mountains and mountains of debt, then the bond traders are going to say, well, we're right. Here we go. If it starts to trend the other way, rates could easily come down.
As long as it's trending the other way, regardless of whether we're at 36 or 36, 37 trillion, if we start to trend downward, there's any signs that they're going to reduce, make some efficient cuts, cut spending some way, shape, or form. The bond market, the 10-year bond is going to reflect that real quickly. The Federal Reserve won't be. Because you're looking out, the bond market will always, once again, looks out 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Warren Buffett had said that he's not concerned about the debt, which sounds shocking to me. But
I wouldn't be concerned about the debt if I was worth $150 billion either.
Well, what he's saying is, look, our debt is always going to be monetized. I mean, it's just nobody's going to run away from the dollar. The United States is not going to default. So he said, the debt in and of itself, I'm not worried about. It's the growth in our spending that I'm worried about that's not sustainable. He goes, so we're spending 7% with a GDP of 3. He goes, that's not sustainable, the gap. We're overspending our GDP by 3%. If you narrow that by 4%, if you narrow that to 2%, he said, we're fine. So just get your spending in line, and you can get your spending in line and you can grow GDP. So lower your spending, grow your GDP to 4%, lower your spending by 2. He said, I'm happy with that. He goes, and then the 36 trillion that you see out there, he goes, over time, and that will take a long time. He goes, that'll be okay, but it's not going to knock us off the rails. So, that's his theory. And if you really want to keep track on a weekly basis, have you signed up for a newsletter yet? This is what it looks like. I put the Cromford chart up here and their commentary, mortgage rates commentary here. And then Pat has a McMortgage tidbit. And then down the bottom, I've got my opinion and some links down there. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, the link is in the description.
That gives a good quick rundown for the week.
It is. And it's a quick read, and it's very mobile friendly. So give it a shot. We usually have about anywhere from 3 to 10 people sign up for it on a weekly basis. So that's cool. Texas, Florida housing market have the most inventory per capita. Now, when you look at this chart, Pat, it shows you that if inventory per capita, Phoenix here is like the second longest one behind Atlanta. The shorter the line, it says the shorter the bar, the more inventory per capita. So San Antonio has a lot of houses available, followed by Jacksonville, Houston, Oklahoma City, and Austin. And then we're kind of up here. So we're not out of the woods yet. And when is the meet and greet? I was hoping we could get to it this week, but I kind of figured with
next couple
Memorial
weeks,
Day and everything. Let's set something up in 2 weeks. Try to do that if I can. So I'll be maybe the first week of June, Carson. So stay tuned. So but it's not going to be one of those great big meet and greets like we had at Craft 64. We're just going to say, hey, Pat and I and maybe Jessica or Jackie are going to be at somewhere in Gilbert. Come on by and see us. So here's an interesting one here. I put it up and took it down. Why buyers and sellers aren't ready to trade agents for tech. In other words, there's an article in Real Estate News that's saying consumers embrace technology. It solves an everyday problem because most people interact with that real industry, and frequently they aren't often thinking about how to change it. In other words, their survey says they don't really want to kick agents to the curb. They're not comfortable that tech is going to handle that transaction like they'd like to see it, which maybe that's why Open Door stock is still only 68 cents.
Yeah. I just, the complexity of a real estate transaction, the emotions that are involved. I just don't think that technology, unless the AI can, figure out something, but there's too many variables and factors that go into it. The emotion, the negotiating back and forth.
Well, I think ChatGPT is going to make the paperwork end of it for you and I a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's going at rocket speed. So, I mean, I think the arduous task of filling out a purchase contract in the next couple of years will be pretty simple.
Yeah.
I just may be able to speak into a microphone and say, we want a purchase price of this with an earnest money deposit of this and a down payment. We'd like to see 2% concession, and boom, spits out an Arizona purchase contract. And then, as documents get uploaded, they talk to each other. It notifies title and lenders what's going on. And so the whole process will become more seamless, but it won't be for you as a consumer to be able to just click on and get that wheel moving. You still need somebody to read it, interpret it, watch out for any landmines that are out there. Yeah. AI is not going to inspect your roof.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So AI may help you find a good roofer if it needs repairs, but it's not going to solve a lot of things, but it could make things a lot easier. So we're hoping.
Yep.
What's going on? I know in your industry, I think you'll see major changes with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I agree.
You're already intelligent, so we'll just pretend that now you're artificially intelligent. Clickbait much. Clickbait. I think clickbait is spelled B-A-I-T, but thank you. So I think, again, as we're going into the summertime here, Pat, do you see inventory going beyond its normal seasonal pattern? And if so, have you got that? I'm going to share that chart. I had that up here. Well, I'll pull it up for you. It's an image file. So let me share
this.
It's
our emotion chart, right?
It's our emotion chart. Yeah. And I have it. There it is. I didn't want to forget this. Here it is. Okay. This is the market cycle.
This is the chart that the team at Tambor puts out, Crawford report. I think it certainly shows you the cycles.
Yeah, I'm going to share this another way so I can show it with my mouse here. But if you look, pull this off, add this to the stage. Sorry, folks, a little behind the scenes stuff. Okay. Now, my first look at this is like, okay, you've got despair, and then you've got, skepticism, hope, relief, optimism, and enthusiasm. Okay. Well, at first,
sounds like my morning.
Yeah. You're kind of looking at this chart thinking, okay, well, when we're in despair, the next thing we see is skepticism. Then we automatically move up to hope, relief, and optimism. This is showing you, well, no, not necessarily. This is me before coffee, after coffee. So, but here's what you see. So see where it says despair here. Notice how rates started going up right here.
Yep.
And then I don't know why they have hope here when rates were still climbing. But when rates came back down, we went from despair. So rates were really high here. We're in despair. And then we got hope because rates came down. Then rates went back up. We had despair. So if you think this isn't a rate-driven market, here's where you're at. Now you got rates down here. We had hope in 2024. And then rates went back up. We had despair. You get it. But despair, it says you are here. I don't think we're in despair. I think we're sluggish. If we were in despair, every house out there would never let it expire or cancel it. They would lower it until it's sold because they were in despair. We're not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't agree with them. I think we're in skepticism.
We're in skepticism. And I think people are, it's kind of a combination of, we're going through, bottom line, we're going through a period of adjustment. Buyers are kind of getting, they're getting it's coming to a more of a buyer's market. Obviously, sellers are kind of still stuck. It's just an adjustment. It's been an adjustment really for about the last year and a half with rates. It goes back to my rates. You look at the rate channel. the rate channel. I mean, basically it's stuck in that rate channel. You know, rates go up, you know, people get a little more despair. They come down, they get down to around, you know, mid sixes, people start getting out there. So it basically just tells me that this is a very interest rate driven market right now.
I don't see sales getting much lower than what they are now. We're hovering around 2,800, 2,900.
Yeah.
There's the occasional holiday where it goes down to 2,200. I don't see it sustaining that low level. But so as I look at our average sales on a 7-day average, I look at our average new listings, I don't see that varying that much in June and July.
No.
Now, the central bank can come in and make a big announcement in June. I still don't see that moving the bar much.
Because I mean, bottom line is you're always going to have some sales because you're always going to have somebody going through a divorce, job relocation, they're dying, they're moving. So I mean, those things are going to kind of keep the market at that bottom number, at least keep it sustained.
Yeah, and it is, you know, it's you know that our listings, active listings from this Thursday to last Thursday have gone down by only 300 homes.
Yeah.
No, 200 homes. Because when I get in and update that little ticker down there, sometimes I only have to change one digit. So we only went down by like 200 homes. The new listings dropped considerably. But again, I mean, you're going to list your home right before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Agent going to come in and say, let's list it on the weekend that everybody leaves town. That'll be a winner.
Yeah, exactly.
winner chicken dinner. And I've implored people before, please don't ask your realtor to hold an open house on Monday, Memorial Day, because it's a lonely, lonely time.
No kidding.
So I got, you got big plans for Memorial Day, Pat, or because it doesn't mean anything to you and I mean,
just working. I know. Just not much. No, I'm not going out of town. I let everybody else go out of town. I will say though, this week we did debut. I'm wearing it. Our new price mortgage shirt. You see the great rates on tap in the front, and we've got price mortgage loans here.
Yeah, there. I'm. You'll have to have a raffle.
Maybe for our meet and greet, I'll give. We'll do this as a prize. Hand out a couple of shirts. So,
you know, Gilbert is growing like crazy. It's amazing some of the developments they're putting in there. In fact, there was just a big article on what's going on at Mesa Gateway Airport, all the warehouses that are out there. They're putting in a port of entry at the Mesa Gateway Airport for Mexico, which will make it easier for people to get products into Mexico by using an airport and staging at a warehouse in Mesa Gateway and then taking off to Mexico and vice versa. So it's going to be a major port of entry. We got commented, said, boy, that's pretty deep. Me or Pat? I don't know. Maybe probably me. So I that was probably, you think that might have been me once again, thinking too much. So
yep.
I'm going to build.
I mean, Gilbert and Chandler have been definitely developing. I mean, Phoenix is just, you know, we're in this period where people are just kind of taking their time. It's been a very interesting time, but there's people still out there. I mean, once again, I'll say this once. I've said this several times. I mean, I'd rather have this type, even though it's slow, it feels like there's a malaise over the market. I mean, once again, we've said this several times over 2020, 2021 period when, people were just putting, 10, 15, 20 offers on a house. They're going up, they're overbidded by 20, 30, 40, 50,000. That's not the market that you want to be buying in. If you're looking at buying.
No, that's not fun. That wasn't fun at all. Queen Creek or Vistantia, better future value for growth. Thanks. Hi, Rick, welcome back. That's a hard one to say. I know that Queen Creek
is Vistantia the one that's out on the west side.
Yeah, I really like that area.
That's a good area.
I think if I were to toss a coin on either one, I'd say Vistantia.
Yeah.
Gilbert, thing about Gilbert, every road is under construction.
Yeah. Well, just goes to show you the road.
Gilbert every morning going down Higley Road, and some days they'd have it pinched off to one lane, and they're digging trenches and stuff. Sometimes wide open. Then you go down to 202 and you get off at Val Vista, and it's all torn up and under construction, and you just couldn't win. So
yeah.
Okay, hamster wheel in your brain with the confused expression was great. You guys are cracking me up. Thanks. We try to have fun on Thursdays. It's the only thing that gets us through the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we try to present some good information, have a little fun, just laugh, laugh at the world for this shall too pass,
There's
but
too much seriousness on YouTube. If you
ah,
can't look at numbers and chew them
Jesus.
apart and dissect them, it just we know what we're doing when it comes to reading data, but none of us are good at projecting out too far. That's why you don't hear me going out much farther than summer. But I do like to point out any potential hiccups that we may see. So if I were to look at this market and say, what is it that concerns me? It's not unemployment. It's banking. So right now, banks are showing signs that they're solid, but we've seen before that can fall off the map pretty quickly. So if it does, I'm going to show the data here and spit it out and go, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that. And so when the market was hot, we were saying, look, like it or not, prices are going to continue to go up as long as we have this shortage. That's not trying to tell people they should buy. That isn't putting in fear mongering, as I've been accused of. That's just saying, look, when you're only putting 4,400 homes on the market and you're selling 4,800 in a 7-day period, you can't expect prices to go down. Somebody
No.
asked me about Sun Lakes a while back, and I said, they go, wow, I can't believe how many listings are out here. It's got to be a record amount. And I pulled up the chart and I showed, and I go, right in the middle. We're 169. Average is 175. But look at 2021. You had 6.
Yeah.
That's why you think there's a lot of houses for sale, because at one point,
Yeah.
there were no for sale signs in your neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And that's, and that story can be told in just about every neighborhood. Now, there's areas right now that are just getting their butts kicked. Maricopa, Buckeye, Queen Creek, Surprise, and Goodyear, and parts of Peoria. It is hard for sellers right now. It's really hard. Buyers are having a heyday out there. Hey, thank you very much, Robert.
thanks, Robert.
Both of you have been entertaining and informing me for years. Go buy yourself a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Well, it's kind of funny because I was because we did these, just a side note, we did these actually one of the, remember those t-shirts we had with Price Mortgage with the Gatorade?
Yes, I have one.
I guess Andy got his chops busted by somebody because we had to stop printing those. But I talked to Andy. He goes, "You think we're going to get a patent infringement with this Pabst Blue Ribbon?" He goes, "Really? We're trying to promote the beer. I mean, you really going to bust our chops for promoting Pabst Blue Ribbon? Come on."
Well, copy.
This was actually my idea. We were on a Zoom call with the company. I said, "Hey, we need because I always like the Pabst Blue Ribbon logo." So I was like, he goes, we'll get, and then Casey, our marketing guy, he goes, "Great rates always on tap." And I'm like, "Oh, that's ingenious."
Well, if you're just seeing that, the Pabst Blue Ribbon on the back, nobody's going to holler at you. But if somebody decides they want to see the other side, and we're probably highlighting it now, we're going to get you a copyright infringement. But it's a tricky business. People want to control their brand. I don't blame them. Like if I see you using my Rick Helps Real Estate logo, Pat, I'm telling you. So I put a QR code on a shirt, and I let it expire, but I may renew it. And all it is a QR code. And I thought, if I'm sitting in a restaurant or I'm out and you click on it, it takes you to my YouTube page. But it doesn't say anything. It's just a QR code. Okay. And you know that somebody's going to sit there and go, "What the hell is that?" And they're going to click. It'll take you to my YouTube page. So I won't be able to see whether or not anybody's done that or not, but I just thought it'd be fun to just kind of, go to our favorite brew pub, and sit on the stool, and just kind of tour around, see what.
Thanks again, Robert. Appreciate the comment.
Yeah, that's great.
But I'll tell you what, I give you credit. I give ourselves credit. I mean, the last several years we've been doing this for over 5. I can't believe we've been doing this for over 5 years.
I know.
I think looking over past some of the things that what's happened, we were talking about, end of last year with the rates, we were talking about, they were talking about 4 or 5 rate cuts last year. And I said, you'll be lucky if you see 2 or 3, overall, maybe we could pat ourselves on the back. Maybe, maybe some of these people won't, but at least I will. Cause I think we've given, you know, at the end of last year, people said, "Oh, the new year is going to be." I'm like, we're like, and even going back last year, what I said, we're probably going to see this stuck in this mucky market last year.
Oh, there was a lot of optimism for January, and I was pushing back, going, "I don't see it, folks."
Yeah.
Oh, spring is going to be hot. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it took a while. Now I saw an agent just last week. Went and saw him at an open house. He goes, "I'll tell you what, July's going to pop," and I just went, "Mm-hmm." Okay. Oh yeah, because rates are going to go down in June.
That's kind of like me looking in the mirror and saying, "Damn, you're good looking." Every morning,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. There's no merit behind it. So
Yeah, there's
well, it's interesting. A little history on how we got started here is that 2 weeks stay home, flatten the curve. I thought, man, we're screwed. And Chandler Mall was shut down. Everything was shut down. And I'm watching these YouTubers get on, and they got these channels where they're updating on the stimulus check. Now they're just these young guys in the basement going, "Well, we're getting word that there's another 2,000 check coming out." None of it was true, but they had these hugely growing YouTube channels, and they were just giving daily updates. And I thought, well, why don't I go live every morning at 8:30 and just talk about real estate and show what's going on? And it started after you and I tried to do a YouTube live using Zoom.
yeah.
It's still on here. It's 5 years in. It's got 78 views. So if you're a new YouTuber, that's where you start. It's Pat watching it 76 times. But it was awful. But so I just started doing morning updates, and real estate doesn't change every day, but not everybody watches you every day. So it's kind of like, okay, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the trends. There's a lot of brokerages that aren't even showing houses right now. There's some that are. Not really seeing the numbers move. I'm seeing inventory go way down because nobody wants to list their house because they don't want you to come in. So it was kind of a good time to start updating people on what actually was going on. And then there were words that you couldn't say because YouTube was really clamping down on misinformation. So you couldn't use the word pandemic or COVID, or they would not put it in front of very many people. So you saw a lot of YouTubers talking about you couldn't say the word. And Harold here says, "I don't see greed on the chart." Greed is, there's always been greed since way back when. If you're selling an apple, you want as much money as you can get from that apple, and the buyer wants to pay as little as possible. That fundamental, it's never going to change. You sell your car, Harold,
well,
you're going to want top dollar.
Well, it goes back to Beanie Babies. Remember when Beanie Babies were going for a couple $1,000s for a damn Beanie Baby? I mean,
yeah.
It's all supply and demand. It goes back, once again, it goes back to our premise. We talk about supply and demand. That's your number one econ equation in the world.
Yeah, that's all. That's it. I mean, if we have short supply and a lot of people want it, price is going to go up.
Yep.
And well, the buyers were the buyers greedy then because they were kind of overpaying for homes, or were they paying it? It's market value. So what is the market? If the market's too hot for you, stay out. If it's an opportunity to get in, then get in. If you see the home you like, grab it. If you want to wait out the market, then do that. I mean, but if you're sitting and waiting out the market now because you think things are going to get worse, then take advantage of getting your finances in order. Get your credit score where it needs to be. Get your debt down to where it needs to be. Maybe invest in other things to get yourself more money for a down payment. If that's where you see the market's headed, then take those steps. Because hope is not a strategy.
No. And the thing is too, from a lending standpoint, there's been a lot of people that changing. Obviously, this COVID, there's people that have changed jobs, gone hourly. I mean, there's different pay structures that people have basically, been involved with on their own personal matter. And that might take some time to kind of sort through on an underwriting standpoint. So get that straightened up, make sure that you've got the income that you've got, not just what you think, but what the underwriter is going to look at. Because we're seeing a lot of people that have got a part-time job say, hey, I got a part-time job 6 months ago. We can't use that because basically any part-time job, you need a 2-year history. And I had this lady that basically just called me last week. She had a part-time job for 2 years. Now she's got a full-time job. So now I've got to check in to see if the underwriter will use both those. Typically they won't. You got to have 2-year history for the most part. And there's a lot of people that have changed from W-2 to 1099. You can still get a loan. Some of these these non-QM loans, their rates are not that bad. I mean, matter of fact, I'm doing a loan for a gentleman right now. He's got several millions of dollars in assets, and I'm getting him actually a lower rate than conventional right now. He's putting 25% down, but we're using just his assets. That's all we're doing is looking at his assets. And this one lender out of Texas has got a nice, there's a lot of niche programs out there, but you got to make sure that you find the niche that you fit in to qualify for the house. So there's people that are changing jobs. In the last 2, 3, 4 years, people have changed jobs, changed occupations. You want to make sure that's all squared away because it might take some time to get, you just don't want to be sitting there like, oh, I want to buy a house, put an offer on the house, and all of a sudden, oh, we got an issue 2 to 3 weeks into it.
Yeah. So if you are looking and saying next year, because I think next year is going to be worse and everything, and getting back to our early conversation about 2010, nobody wanted to buy then. They were too scared. But you would have made out like crazy had you done that. But that, like you say, nobody rings a bell at the bottom or rings a bell at the top. So if you are looking at buying next year, you're planning on it because you think prices are coming down, then get your ducks in a row and be ready to pull the trigger. Because you know what? That's what the investors are doing. The investors are holding back their money now and they're waiting. So if things do go south, the investors are the first ones to jump in and you can compete with them. But right now, that's if you don't have financing arranged.
Well, this time frame has allowed people, people that have got maybe some challenges that might, take some time to get the loan through. Right now, this time frame allows you, that maybe the marginal buyer that might take a little bit, might need some concessions, things of that. When you got a hot market like 2021, those marginal buyers were being pushed out. They're like, forget it.
They didn't stand a chance.
Now they didn't stand a chance. But now, marginal, when I say marginal, I mean, I'm just like high debt to income. You might be just on the fringes of buying something. You might be able to do a buy down, if you're qualify at 6 7/8, but you do a buy down to 6 1/4 to qualify your loan, do a permanent buy down. You can get qualified on a permanent buy down, at a certain rate. So this is going to open up that, this window of opportunity. Like you and I, we talked about, last several years. I think you and I are good at, my philosophy is you're great at data. You take the data turns into trends, and then trends turn into the psychology of the market. So.
I agree. Well, Pat, have a fabulous weekend. Probably talk to you over the weekend a little bit. And I don't have any major plans. So we'll see how the weekend shakes out. And I will be back next week. Hope everybody has a safe Memorial Day weekend. Take care, everybody.